chapter 4 of the book of Esther. And Mordecai learned of all that had been done. So he learned that there was a letter sent to all of the kingdom to tell them that they could kill the Yahudim on the 13th of Adar. So they had a year to go, for it was written on Nisan. And Mordecai tore his garments and put on sackcloth and ashes, which is the clothing mentioned when it talks about the two witnesses in Revelation 11. So he confirms Mordecai as the witness like Moshe, dressed in sackcloth. So Mordecai tore his garments and put on sackcloth and ashes, and went out into the midst of the city and cried out with a loud and bitter cry. He went out into the midst of the city, and once again, like if it was the two witnesses giving the testimony, cried out with a loud and bitter cry, and went up to the front of the sovereign's gate, for no one might enter the sovereign's gate wearing sackcloth. So he didn't enter the gate. He remained outside because nobody could enter wearing sackcloth. Anybody who went into the palace or the king, well, to see the king, they needed to be happy. They needed to be well dressed. A person could be killed for being unhappy before the king, because they could pass that unhappiness, that vibe to the king, and therefore they deserve death. So that's why these laws were in place. And that's part of what we have spoken about, how we need to be happy, content. And that's how the Spirit will be able to use us. If we are sad, if we are depressed, the Spirit will actually stay away. And we could say like, yeah, the Spirit will just go away because the Spirit doesn't want to be in the presence of that negative vibration or energy, which is basically spirit. So if an evil spirit comes to bring sadness and depression, the Spirit of truth cannot be there, right? It's one or the other. So that's the point. It's not like the Spirit will say, oh, you're sad, I don't want to talk to you. No, it's not like that. It's just the person, through their actions and decisions, this is pretty much the one choosing what spirit will be with him or her. So we see that the king would not allow anybody who was unhappy to enter before him. So the same with the Ruach, the same with Yahweh. We need to be happy. Obviously, Yahweh understands if we're going through affliction, if we cry and look for him and all of that, he understands that. But the point is in general, because even through affliction, we should remain focused. We should remain confident that Yahweh has control, even if we're sad, even if we cry. We need to know it in deep inside. So, and he went up to the front of the sovereign's gate, for no one might enter the sovereign's gate wearing sackcloth. And in every province where the sovereign's command and decree came, there was great mourning among the Yahudim, and fasting and weeping and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. And Esther's young women and eunuchs came and told her, and the sovereigness was deeply pained, and sent garments to Mordecai to wear. This is interesting because, well, we can put ourselves in both, like in Esther's position, and understand that she didn't want Mordecai, who she saw as her father, to be sad. And you know how women are about appearances. So she sent clothing, like, you should get dressed. You shouldn't be looking like that, right? But Mordecai is not worried about that. He's worried about his people, not about himself, but about his people. So Esther obviously is worried about the people, but here we see her worriness for Mordecai, while Mordecai actually sees this as disrespectful, for he's not worried about himself or his honor or his appearance. He's worried about the people. So he says, and sent garments to Mordecai to wear, and to take away his sackcloth from him, but he refused. So that's like saying, please be happy. I'll give you anything you need. And he refuses to accept it, because how can he be happy when the people are in danger? And even more if he knew that it was because he didn't want to bow down, right? Because, so in a way, imagine the guilt that he could feel in the flesh, not that he was guilty directly, but the enemy would use this to pretty much destroy him emotionally, because in the flesh, he could feel that he was to blame, because he was the one who didn't bow down to Haman, and now Haman wants to kill his whole nation because of that. So the enemy could say to him, you see, because of your ego, because you didn't want to show respect, now the whole nation will die. But if that was the case, Yahweh would not come to help them, because his destruction would be, in a way, just, in a way. Obviously not of the people, but of Mordecai. I was talking if he was being a rebel. So, and Esther called Hatak, one of the sovereign's eunuchs one of the sovereign's eunuchs whom he had appointed to attend her. And she gave him a command concerning Mordecai to learn what and why this was. Esther called Hatak, one of the sovereign's eunuchs whom he had appointed to attend her, and she gave him a command concerning Mordecai to learn what and why this was. Right? Because she was the queen now. She didn't know what was going on with the people. She just finds out that Mordecai is at the gate, but wearing sackcloth. So she's worried and just sends clothing and says, just get dressed. What's happening? So since he doesn't want to, he refuses to get dressed, she has to send somebody to ask, what is going on? Why are you acting this way? And Hatak went out to Mordecai to an open space of the city in front of the sovereign's gate. And Mordecai told him all that befell him, and all about the silver that Haman promised to pay into the sovereign's treasuries to destroy the Yahudim. So he had information. And he gave him a copy of the written decree to destroy them, which was given at Shushan. So she didn't know anything. He had to bring the information to her, because since she was the queen, now she was living large. Now she didn't get involved with the people that much. So, and he gave him a copy of the written decree to destroy them, which was given at Shushan, to show it to Esther and explain it to her, and to command her to go in to the sovereign to make supplication to him and plead before him for her people. So Mordecai is worried, is mortified, and he decides to go and ask Esther to go to the king. So he realizes, he's starting to realize spiritually, there's a reason why Esther became the queen. Now she has access to the king. She can actually talk to him. But there was a law in this kingdom. There were several harsh laws, because it represents strict justice. One of the laws was that nobody could go before the king if the king didn't call that person. Nobody could do so. That person, if somebody would enter before the king without being called, he would be killed. He or she would be killed, no matter if she was the queen. She or he would only be saved if the king decided to forgive at the last moment by extending the scepter to the person. So Mordecai goes to Esther, trying to get her to talk to the king. And Hatak came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. And Esther spoke to Hatak and gave him a command for Mordecai. All the sovereign servants and the people of the sovereign's provinces know that any man or woman who goes into the inner court to the sovereign, you see how it says inner court, which is also representing to go into the temple, for instance, from the outer court of the temple, who has not been called, he has but one law, to be put to death, except the one to whom the sovereign holds out the golden scepter, who then shall live. So Esther sends a message to Mordecai and says, I'm sorry, Mordecai, but there's a law, and anybody who goes into the king, into the presence of the king without being called into the inner court, that person will be killed. It doesn't matter who he or she is. Only except the one to whom the sovereign holds out the golden scepter, who then shall live. But I have not been called to come into the sovereign these 30 days. So she had not been called for the whole month, those 30 days. And remember, and even though we are not told from the writing of the letter to this moment how much time has passed, but I wouldn't think that long, because he realized the same day and he put on sackcloth and went to look for Esther. So this could be happening on the 14th, perhaps even the same 13th, if since he was in the capital, he could have heard right away. So this could have happened the same 13th. And remember that the book hasn't said that the day has changed. So we're on the 13th, perhaps the 14th of the first month, and that is important. We'll see why. So all the sovereign servants and the people of the sovereign's provinces know that any man or woman who goes into the inner court to the sovereign who has not been called, he has but one law, to be put to death, except the one to whom the sovereign holds out the golden scepter, who then shall live. But I have not been called to come into the sovereign these 30 days. And they declared to Mordecai the words of Esther. And Mordecai commanded them to answer Esther. Do not think, and this is an amazing answer, because I can imagine, well, obviously Mordecai, but once again, putting yourselves in both positions, that of Esther and Mordecai. One could understand Esther, but now Mordecai is, pretty much baffled in a way that Esther doesn't want to follow his command as she had done all the time. But it's understandable. She thought she could die. So she's like giving him the excuses. But to him, there is no excuse really, because all of the nation would die. So he's like saying, so you are about to let your entire nation die, thousands of people, women and children that would die because you're afraid to go before the king because you might die. Yeah, but if he loves you, he wouldn't kill you. So the fact that she says this in a way is like saying to Mordecai, I don't think I can do that. I'm sorry. But she's not taking into account that there's a reason why she became queen, which is what Mordecai understands. So he says, do not think within yourself to escape in the sovereign's palace any more than all the other Yahudim. So he's saying, remember, you're a Yahudi as well. If he decides to kill all the Yahudim and he realizes you're a Yahudi, you're going to be killed as well. So don't think that you will save your life by not entering the inner court of the palace, because that's let's say it wasn't, but let's say it was 50-50 that you might get killed if you enter before the king. But if you don't do that, it will be 100% that you will die, because it will come out eventually that you are a Yahudi and he will kill you. If all Yahudim will be killed, you will be killed. So might as well go before the king. There's a reason why you became queen. So he's trying to make her understand, to process everything. Do not think within yourself to escape in the sovereign's palace any more than all other Yahudim, all the other Yahudim. For if you keep entirely silent at this time, this is important, and this is something that we need to understand. And this is in a way like showing what is the perfect will of the Father and the permissible will of the Father. So Mordecai is saying the perfect will is for you and go to speak to the king. That is the perfect will of the Father, for you to go and speak to the king about this matter. That's why you became queen. But if you don't want to do that, Yahweh will have another way, which is the permissible will. Yahweh will give you permission to not obey. Yahweh will give you permission to not go and talk to the king, but he will do it another way, and then you'll have to pay. So that's the issue. So, for if you keep entirely silent at this time, relief and deliverance shall arise for the Yahudim from another place. That is huge, because it also shows Mordecai's emunah, his faith was strong. For he said, if you don't do it, Yahweh will do it some other way. You might as well do it. You might as well be the means through which Yahweh will bring salvation to the people. So he's trying to make her understand, you're not saving yourself by not going into. you're actually losing your life, and not only your life in this reality, perhaps the next, because Yahweh put you there for a reason. He can make it another way if you don't want to be used by him, but you might as well allow it. So, and Mordechai commanded them to answer Esther, do not think within yourself to escape in the sovereign's palace any more than all the other Yahudim. For if you keep entirely silent at this time, relief and deliverance shall arise for the Yahudim from another place. So he knows, even though he's dressed in sackcloth, even though in the flesh he might be worried, he knows that Yahweh can save them a different way. While you and your father's house perish, relief and deliverance shall arise for the Yahudim from another place, while you and your father's house perish. And who knows whether you have come to the reign for such a time as this? This was an important question, rhetorical, but because it was obvious that that's why she became queen. But he's trying to make her think about it. And who knows whether you have come to the reign for such a time as this? So that would make her realize, yeah, actually, that's why I'm a queen, and that's why I'm here, and I should go and act. So, Mordechai says this now, another thing that I saw here. While you and your father's house perish. So you see that Mordechai is saying, if you don't allow Yahweh to use you to bring salvation to his people, then you and your house will perish. The people won't, because Yahweh will make it another way. He will bring redemption a different way, but you will perish. So that is interesting. It's pretty much saying you have absolutely nothing to lose, but everything if you don't do it. Like if you don't do it, you will lose for sure. You will be destroyed. You will die. But if you do it, Yahweh will be with you, and you might save the entire nation. So while you and your father's house perish, and who knows whether you have come to the reign for such a time as this. And Esther commanded to reply to Mordechai, go gather all the Yahudim. Listen to this. Go gather all the Yahudim who are present in Shushan and fast for me. And do not eat or drink for 3 days. For 3 days. Like I said, it is very possible that this happened on the 14th, for we know that the letters were written on the 13th, then made copies and then sent everywhere. Mordechai read it, got dressed in sackcloth, and went to look for Esther. So that could happen in a day, no doubt. Plus, he was close to he was in the capital. So we see that this might have happened on the 14th. It could have happened a week later, yes, but the scripture is not saying anything. The last day that it mentioned was the 13th. We know the 14th is Pesach. We know that Mashiach was killed in the morning. Well, he was hanged on the morning, but killed or died eventually on the afternoon at 3 p.m. on the 15th of Aviv, of Nisan. So he died on the 15th. So he was in the grave during the night of the 15th, that of the 16th, and that of the 17th, and the morning or the day of the 18th, right? So 3 nights and 3 days, right? 3 nights and 3 days, or as it is normally said, 3 days and 3 nights that Mashiach would be in the grave from Matzot, from Pesach, in order to give us eternal life. So now we see that it says, go gather all the Yahudim, all those who worship Yahweh, who are present in Shushan, and fast for me. And do not eat or drink for 3 days. So that's pretty much saying, do not eat or drink, as if you were dead, as Mashiach would be for 3 days, starting from the 15th. Go and gather all the Yahudim who are present in Shushan and fast for me, and do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I too and my young women shall fast in the same way. Then I shall go to the sovereign, which is against the law, and I shall perish. And if I shall perish, I shall perish. So she's saying, okay, you're right. But please do this for me, because I am worried. No doubt she she would be scared. So she asks everybody to fast for her. That's why this is called Esther's fast, which the Jewish people do it for just one day. But as we see here, it lasts 3 days. And it's interesting because if this happened during Matzot, that kind of shows the apostasy in which they were, because it would seem that they weren't celebrating Pesach or Matzot. They celebrated it in a way, but by the affliction that they were going through. Pretty much they were about to go through this trouble because of not doing the will of Yahweh. But once they turn to Yahweh, Yahweh saves them. So it is possible that they were not celebrating the feast as they should, like people don't celebrate the feast in our time. But we see that during the time of the main feast, where Mashiach would come and die and remain dead for 3 days, Esther was about to go into the king's chamber, and therefore be in danger of being killed. So she asked for a 3-day fast, which obviously, I repeat, connects to the 3 days of Mashiach's death. So I too and my young women shall fast in the same way. Then I shall go to the sovereign, which is against the law. So she's about to do something against the law, once again showing how we will be seen as those who break the law, when in fact we are trying to fulfill the highest law, that of Yahweh, the spiritual one, right? For we take the letter, as it is written, that Yahweh was looking for worshipers that would worship in spirit and truth. So that's what we do with the scriptures. We understand them according to spirit and truth, not according to the letter, which would be the flesh and falsehood. So, which is against the law. And I shall perish. And if I shall perish, I shall perish. So she accepts that if she needs to die, she will die. And that is the attitude that the 144,000 must have. As I have said, and as Mashiach said, he who tries to save his life will lose it, and he who gives his life will receive it for eternal life. So she said, if I have to die, I'll die. The 144,000 are people who are willing to die for Yahweh and Mashiach. But because of their willingness, Yahweh won't allow it. He will give them life, and they won't experience death. So that's what Esther is representing here by saying, if I shall perish, I will perish. That's Mordecai then went away and did according to all that Esther commanded him. So they started a 3-day fast. And that's the end of the chapter.